Hello there and welcome or welcome back. This video will focus on chapters 6 to 10 of the novel For the Life of Laetitia by Merle Hodge. I've covered 1 to 5 previously, so you can look for that video if you missed it. Again, I will be using the format discussed in my video, How to Study for English B, and if you haven't watched it, you can do so. The chapters in this book are quite short, that's why I will do 5 at a time. And some of them won't include devices or quotes because I just don't think some of them have quotes that are necessary to memorize. Okay, so let's get to it. Chapter 6. Characters, we have Laetitia's father, Mr. Cephas, Laetitia's stepmother, Velma Cephas or Miss Velma, Michael, Laetitia's little brother. We are meeting him for the first time, and the setting is La Puerta. Summary. Laetitia finally arrives at her father's house. She meets his wife, who wants to be called Miss Velma instead of Mistress Cephas. Velma helps her to get settled and shows her to her room. Her brother's bed is messy, and this causes her to worry about his destructive nature. She hides her box of books under her bed. Later, she meets loud, messy, unmannerly Michael. So this is the first time she's meeting her little brother Michael. Later, she takes a nap and wakes up hearing Velma begging her son to eat. She feels sorry for her. Themes, we have change. Laetitia's life is changing. She has moved into a new house. She has a different room, a different bed. Love and family relationships, and we also have childhood or innocence. We see that mostly in the little brother Michael. So if there's anything you'd like to add, any questions that you have, you can type them in the comments. And we'll move on to chapter 7. The characters here, Mr. Cephas, Miss Velma, and the setting is La Puerta at their home. Summary. Miss Velma waits for Mr. Cephas to come home, but eventually gives up and goes to bed. Laetitia goes to church with her the next morning. When they return home, Miss Velma gets started on breakfast and lunch. Mr. Cephas wakes up and they listen to some Christian music. He leaves and returns much later for lunch. Miss Velma and Laetitia clean up afterwards while Mr. Cephas polishes his car and Michael goes somewhere to play. Laetitia sits in the drawing room to read, but the cluttered room makes her feel uncomfortable. There's just so much everywhere, ornaments and all that stuff. Suddenly, her father arrives with a group of men. He proudly introduces her as the little scholar and makes her shake their hands. Later, she has to put ice in their glasses, so he is trying to show her off again. The next morning, Laetitia and Miss Velma have to clean up their mess. So the men left a mess and the ladies have to clean up the next day. Devices contrast, and I'll get to that in a while. Themes, we have religion. They do go to church in the morning and they are listening to hymns on the radio. So we can see that religion is there. It's not that strong, but it's still there. And women in society, you can clearly see the distinction between women and men in this society. The men and even the little boy, Michael, they don't clean up after themselves. They don't do any work in the house. And the women are expected to do everything. And even when the men come to visit, and Laetitia is this great scholar, he describes her as, he still reduces her to a person who has to serve ice to the men. I guess this is debatable, that maybe he's trying to help her to understand her position in society. I mean, that is something that we can discuss, right? It's open to discussion. That's what literature is about. So yes, we can see that theme here. So if CSEC ever asks a question about women in society, I think you have a lot to talk about, even though we are only on chapter 7 right now, because we did have that theme in the first 5 chapters. So let's move on. Chapter 8. Characters here, Miss Velma and Michael. The setting is La Puerta again. This one is relatively short. Miss Velma takes Laetitia shopping for books and school clothes. During the week, she shows her around the town. Laetitia learns to walk to school and back. She also learns how to control her brother and they begin to develop a positive relationship. Themes, we have change again. She's getting her uniforms, her books, getting accustomed to a new town and all of that. And we also have love and family relationships. The siblings, particularly, they are starting to develop a relationship. And I guess we always assume that the stepmother is always going to be evil and wicked, but Miss Velma seems to be quite nice. And Michael and Laetitia are starting to develop something positive. So we'll see how this goes. Chapter 9. And again, in chapter 8, I don't really see any devices or quotes worth memorizing, but if you do see them, you can type them in the comments. Again, we may not have a quote for every single chapter because that might be way too much to memorize, and the author will not use a specific device in every single chapter. So, chapter 9. Yay, it's school time. So the characters here, the principal and Johnny, Miss Hafiz, who is the form teacher, and the other students. The setting is school. Summary. It's the first day of the new school year. After the principal's welcoming speech, the students are divided into their homerooms. Laetitia is placed in 1H and is paired with Anjani, a friendly girl who reminds her of Tara, a pregnant girl Mawili took in some time ago. They sit together in class. Later, their teacher, Miss Hafiz, takes them on a tour of the school. At lunchtime, Anjani wants to eat outside because she is self-conscious about the roti and talkari she has for lunch. They find a spot under a tree. Anjani tells Laetitia that she lives far away from the school and has to travel every day. Some themes here: pride, mainly in Anjani not wanting anybody to see what she's eating. It's food associated with country people or the lower class. Although Laetitia is assuring her, like, hey, this is delicious. What are you embarrassed about? And we also have change again. Any devices? I haven't really seen any worth noting. But again, you can type them in the comments if you notice any device that I have not mentioned. And with that, we move on to chapter 10. Characters and Anjani teachers. Setting is school again. Anjani arrives to school late and does not have her textbooks, so Laetitia shares with her. During lunchtime, she tells Laetitia that she will get the rest of her books next week. She seems embarrassed, and Laetitia attempts to cheer her up by making jokes about Mrs. Lopez, the circus horse, who happens to be their math teacher. Anjani does not have the PE uniform either and is easily worn out during the class. She is late again the day after. They eat near some abandoned lockers as it is too wet outside because it was raining, so everybody stayed inside. But still, she is way too embarrassed to eat whatever she has in front of her classmates. Later, she falls asleep on her desk. So we're learning a lot about this character. It appears that she is just really tired. So what's causing all of that? We'll find out later. Themes: poverty. While it is not stated explicitly that Anjani is poor yet, we can see some of the hints that are there. And maybe you can see some contrast. I didn't type it there, but the device we can probably notices contrast. Initially, it seems like Laetitia has it hard. She has it rough. She has to move to a new town, live with strangers. Even though they are family, it's still like they are strangers to her just to go to school. But compared to Anjani, she is quite well off. She has all of her textbooks and she's not tired during the day and she seems to be well taken care of. So perhaps you can say that contrast is a device in this chapter. So we've come to the end of this video. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to type them below. And if you have any essays that you would like to be proofread or anything like that, you can email engbsolutions@gmail.com. See you next time.